Hey everyone, we've got a little bit of a different video today. As you may have noticed, the reason for that is I've been working on this one. A rare chip of uploading intensifies. This video has an interesting dichotomy. The script was written with lines of players and corporations such as AOR, like, I don't know, Flim and Faith or something, and other people who genuinely have no idea what this game means. But the actual video is made with veteran players in mind, like FDEF, Ether, and, I don't know, Pay to Win, because I figure they're the only ones who will actually watch it, because chances are if you're clueless about the game, then you're also clueless about this channel. I want to clarify a few things before this video starts though. Occasionally you'll hear us say things like 2 times and 3 times multipliers turning into a 6 times multiplier or whatever, so stuff like that. Well, that was accurate when the script was written, but now when we reference that, just mentally replace it in your mind with like the 2 times and 2.5 times for 5 times multiplier. This video has taken a long time to make, so obviously some things will have changed during the editing process. It's been about 300 hours now working in DaVinci, and we've spent about 1,000 if you count all the time for the project. So, you better like it. Okay, no. You know what? If you don't subscribe, that Beatles stall is gonna show up when you go to sleep tonight, and it's gonna. Anyway, that's why I had this. Why are there so many cars in my front yard? It's like 3 a.m.
Turn around, cats got their hands out, want something from it. I ain't got it, so you can't get it. Let's leave it at that, cause I ain't with it. Hit it with full strength. I'm a jail nigga, so I face the world like a girl in the door pass. You against me against you. Whatever, whenever, nigga, fuck you gon' do. Get out the way, get out the way, bitch, get out the way. Move, bitch, get out the way, get out the way, bitch, get out the way. Move, bitch, get out the way, get out the way, bitch, get out the way. Move, bitch, get out the way, get out the way, bitch, get out the way. Alright, stop. Pajama time. Come here, little kitties, on my lap. Guess who's back with a brand new rap? And I don't mean rap as in a new case of child molestation accusation. No worries, what else could I possibly do to make noise? I done touched on everything but little boys. 낮에는 따사로운 인간적인 여자. 커피 한 잔에 여유를 아는 품격 있는 여자. 밤이 오면 심장이 뜨거워지는 여자. 그런 반전 있는 여자. Go shorty, it's your birthday. We gon' party like it's your birthday. We gon' sip a party like it's your birthday. And you know we don't give up, it's not your birthday. You can find me in the club, bottle full of booze. I'm not what you need if you need to fill the buzz. I'm in the having sex, I ain't into making love. So come give me a hug, be in the getting love.
Go
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another season of SecCon Bravo, the only show that spends more time in production than people spend actually watching it. As always, I'm your host, Papy McBites, and this year we actually had the budget for a translator. Say hello, translator.
Всем привет и добро пожаловать в очередной сезон БЗС Браво, единственного шоу, которое бывает в разработке больше времени, чем люди тратят на его просмотр. Как всегда, с вами ведущий Papy McBites, и в этом году у нас действительно был бюджет на переводчика. Поздоровайся со зрителями, переводчик. Привет всем! Вы можете знать меня в игре как Маджинари или Мжелильский из корпорации FDEF. И да, они платят мне 1 ГС за каждое слово, которое я здесь скажу. Так что я подумываю попереводить еще несколько эпизодов.
Now, last season we focused more on the open space aspects of the game, and in seasons 4 and 5 we focused more on PvE and PvP respectively. Well, this season we're bringing back some of the fan favorites as well as some new segments that we hope you'll enjoy.
В последнем сезоне мы сфокусировались на внутриигровых аспектах открытого мира, а в сезонах 4 и 5 мы фокусировались больше на PvE и PvP соответственно. Что ж, в этом сезоне мы возвращаем несколько как любимых фанатами частей, так и добавим новых, которые, как мы надеемся, вам понравятся.
As always with every new season, episode 1 of season 7 will be mostly recapping the events that occurred between seasons. We'll be loosely covering the stages and rewards for the moon race, seed chips, and the new Foundation Pass. Sector Conquest also got some updates recently, but there's so much wrong with the mode at this point that not even the developers know what's happening.
Как обычно в каждом сезоне, в первом эпизоде 7-го сезона мы в основном остановимся на событиях, которые произошли между сезонами. Мы немного коснемся этапов и наград лунной гонки, сид-чипов и также пропуска «Новое основание». БЗС также получила несколько обновлений в последнее время, хотя с этим режимом настолько все плохо, что даже сами разработчики не знают, что там происходит.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be bringing back some of the fan favorites this year. We'll be covering some of what I'll go over in the recap with the return of the Season 4 PvE guide, the Season 6 meta review, and the long-awaited weapon review and farming guide of the 4,000 United States dollar Prolapse Burster. We've referenced this in the past as separate Prolapse God and Ghost Burster videos, but due to budget constraints, we're combining them into a single segment.
Как я уже ранее говорил, мы вернем несколько любимых фанами вещей в этом году. Делая обзор на прошедшие события, мы вернемся к гайдам по PvE, как в 4-м сезоне, и обзором на мету, как в сезоне 6-м, долгожданным обзором на оружие и фарм-гайду на Анус Бластер за 250 тысяч рублей, о том, как его получить и как с ним. Знаете что? Это видео ужасно. После просмотра всего сценария это больше похоже на час просто чтения ради видео, которое получит максимум 300 просмотров. Это глупая трата времени, и я больше не хочу в этом участвовать.
Actually, speaking of budget constraints, we just ran out of budget for translations. We spent all of it on trying to get the video out on time, but it's still coming out late anyway. To help solve this issue for the next episode, how about a quick message about our first sponsor? This video has been sponsored by the Raid Jericho sub-faction. Now, I don't know if you already knew this, but the ships made by Jericho have a lot of shields and typically extra kinetic buffs. And yeah, they're slow, but that's okay because they're really tanky. The Jericho Station Mendez 9 is available to all mercenaries with a clearance level of, I don't know, 12 probably. I can't tell you because I already have it unlocked. The station is protected by routine police patrols which will force criminals to pay a fine or die because there is no space jail anymore. If any criminals think they can tussle with the cops out here, they need to think again because that's right, Jericho ships are tanky. Joining the Jericho is easy. All you have to do is download the Star Conflict game for free and pick Jericho as your starting faction, and you will have access to electronic countermeasures interceptors which shut down enemy ships, high damage covert operations interceptors which are good for dogfighting, command fighters which buff your entire team, tackler fighters which slow down your opponents, guard frigates which are basically tank but with extra tank, so kind of tank squared. And last but not least, the guided torpedo variant of the long-range frigate, which allows you to snipe from around corners and behind cover. And if you use my join link on the screen now or click from the video description, you'll get a free Blackheart Premium Command Fighter along with a rank 3 Protective Diffusion Shield and 1,000 gold to start you off in your adventures. Join the Jericho free today by downloading Star Conflict at star-conflict.com or on Steam. Oh, actually I've just been informed that starting factions aren't a thing anymore and that Referral links also aren't a thing anymore, but I mean, we're still sponsored if I read the script, so whatever. Thanks, Jericho. So it's been a while since the last episode of Season 6, and some stuff has happened in Star Conflict since then. Originally, we were planning this episode to be released around late December, but there were some delays. So we've got quite a bit longer of a video ahead of us today, simply due to the extra content released before production on this season began. Well, what all has happened? Aside from a lot of political intercorporate matters that happened recently, we've had some major updates. Stage 1 of the Moonrace brought us a new type of PvE mission, theoretically lasting up to 24 hours, but realistically limited to 3 hours, probably a lot less due to network errors. Stage 2 brought us the latest cash grab in the form of the T5 Ze'Ta and its completely busted modules. Stage 3 brought us the first new open space map in years, Dreamland. Although you would think that they would improve the server stability with the release of their new open space based event, but I guess part of the Moonrace was that they moved the USA servers to the moon. With this, they released the experimental destroyer, which they wanted everyone to call the Woodlouse. However, the meme community decided that this was an awful name and somehow decided on Prolapse God as being better. And months later, Speed Farm Wings still refer to the boss as the PGod. With the conclusion of the Moonrace, we got access to the rank 17 guard frigate, the Janitor. A full review soon TM, but for now, all you need to know about it is that basically every high-tier PvP and PvE player agrees that it, along with all of its special equipment, are pretty bad outside of memes, but you can make better memes with the next update. The Halloween update brought us the Black Ghost DLC, a $10 premium destroyer with identical stats to the Vigilant but with worse mod placements, and a hilarious spec mod that allows you to go faster than stock fighters and interceptors. Great meme, but unfortunately it was only available for 22 days if you bought it on release, and now it just collects dust in your hangar until the next Halloween. Seriously, $10 to fly it for 22 days? Who would waste their money on something like that? Wrapping up the year, we saw the release of Seed Chips. If you're sad that the Black Ghost memes are now over, well, look no further than these monstrosities to fulfill your desire to laugh uncontrollably as the game's physics fall apart around you. Finally, with the new year was the release of the New Foundation event, which gave access to the Rank 16 Federation Recon Martin, teased in 2018, and yet another completely random ship that got released before the Scylla was even announced, after being teased also in 2018. Welcome the Hammerhead, also known as yet another worse Wasgot.
Somebody kill me. Anybody?
That about concludes the recap. If you missed out on any of the Moonrace items, fear not, the Custodian can be purchased for $30, although I'm not sure why anyone other than Atlas completionists would ever want it. All the cosmetics claimed to be event exclusive will likely just come back later for about $20 in a DLC. Dreamland and the PGod fight is still available to all, but be warned, if you try and fight it without knowing what you're doing, you're probably just wasting your time. But don't worry, this episode will have a guide on how to fight it. The Ze'Ta stuff isn't really accessible, neither is the Black Ghost, but the proprietary components to the Martin and Hammerhead can still be purchased from other players on trade. Oh yes, and the Temple of Last Hope is now public access as well, so if you didn't buy the DLC, you can now play it for free. Speaking of which...
Hey everyone, I'm the real Ze'Ta, and you have no proof that I'm not. And I'm back again with another PvE guide. They wanted me to keep it short this year, apparently to fill in the gaps between Season 6 and 7. They're trying to make Episode 1 have twice the content without being twice as long. So, to keep to my contract, I'll have to keep things brief this time. So, you want to play Temple of Last Hope, or as it's listed on the leaderboard, Temple of Last Hope. Well, there's a few things to keep in mind. If you recall from the last season, player spawns such as drones and AoE clouds, player-allied structures, and map hazards in PvE do not scale according to mission level, nor do they scale with the defense or power level of the player who spawned them in. This means even if a player has max power and defense levels, if they spawn a Wasgot battle station, it will still have the same exact health and damage output as an unleveled player. This is important to keep in mind as the objective of the mission is to defend an allied structure. The objective will load with level 1 health and stay that way no matter how high level you go. protecting it will become increasingly more difficult as the mission progresses. And unfortunately, static barrier shields also do not scale, meaning you can't bring a level 200 defense static barrier to protect the objective. So, with this knowledge, we know we're going to need an engineer. Engineers built to heal using main weapons will scale off of power defense, so your highest level player should be an engineer. If possible, they should bring fire rate and weapon heating reduction builds to increase their healing output. This can be further increased dramatically with the use of seed chips. Now, most PvE missions scale enemy health and damage significantly faster than player health and damage. However, in this mission things are a little different. Enemy damage still scales insanely quickly, and their effective hit points, or EHP, also known as the ship's survivability, will also increase, but their total actual health stays the same. The difference here is damage resistances. This is very interesting because, as we discussed in Season 5, resistance has diminishing returns. A ship with 5,000 resistance and a ship with 10,000 resistance are going to have practically the same damage reduction. So if you can kill an enemy at level 60 in this mission, you'll be able to kill an enemy at level 300 in just about the same amount of time. The only problem is surviving the damage at that high of level. So how does one kill an enemy by dealing 1 damage to them? Well, remember what I said about total health remaining the same? They all have the same total health at level 1 as at any other level, and true damage, also known as white damage, bypasses resistances and typically goes straight to hull. What do we know of that we as players can use to deal true damage? Well, if you're thinking about collision damage, you'd be right. Turns out you can one-hit kill just about any mob in this mission except for event spawns just by running into it. So at least one of your ships is going to have to dedicate themselves to ramming things to death. If you're finding that you don't have enough ram damage, there are seed chips that can help with that. This also means that the engineer should also bring a gravity wave to kill large groups of enemies by throwing them against the generator, meaning they will have to fly a Wazga, which conveniently allows them to bring a vomit box to reduce the chance of an enemy ship dodging a ram. Another thing to keep in mind is that the engineering frigates in this mission will heal the entire enemy force to full health if left alive. These are primary targets for bumping. You can bring a Taikin with emergency stasis to bump the frigates to death while cloaked. Although, as discussed in the last season, AI and Star Conflict have ignored radar and visibility ever since people got to level 54 in Ariadne's thread with no power or defense levels. The cloak here merely transfers aggro from you to the engineer, so aside from improving healing capacity, this is another reason your engineer player will have the highest defense in the group. A strategy we have been able to employ effectively with only one player having levels, that being an engineer, to until about level 30 is 1 high-level Brock, 1 unleveled Granite, 2 unleveled Scimitars fitted to ram things to death. This is probably the easiest strategy that could be performed to a moderately high level, but if you want to go to high or extreme levels, you'll need 2 Wazgots, a Taikin for ramming, and a Leonina for revealing the map and reducing enemy health regen speed, because everything here likes to cloak and heal a lot. Once you get into the battle, there's a few things you will notice. Certain enemies will deal more damage to the generator than others. Ones you really need to keep an eye on and kill as quickly as possible are the chameleons. Their icon is an ECM, and they fire boosted RF blasters. A single chameleon can ruin your entire run if your engineer takes their eyes off the generator for more than a few seconds. Also, you will notice you cannot build the turrets. Sometimes enemies will drop pickups. Every player can hold one item, but holding an item prevents them from interacting with another. A player can hold either a damage buff or a turret activator, which your highest defense player other than the engineer should use, because somehow these turrets do actually scale with the player's defense. Once a turret has been built on a hardpoint, if it dies, that hardpoint can no longer be used. There are also 2 other things that can drop but are used upon interaction, and cannot be picked up or moved. An Annihilator and a Generator Repair. The Generator Repair will restore 30% of the generator's health, and an Annihilator will cause every enemy ship on the map to self-destruct. This does not include event spawns that occur at steady intervals throughout the mission, that being either an asteroid or a cruiser. While they will not self-destruct, our testing has revealed that it would seem they do not scale their health according to level. These structures have a base resistance of 0, so they're very easy to deal with. Alternatively, if you have a group with high enough power levels, you can just bring 1 engineer and 3 tilt sparks to carry about 35 or 36. We've prepared a quick demonstration video in partnership with the Even server crew to show you what the Temple of Last Hope experience is like. And yes, we are aware the quality of this demo video is below our typical standards, but the hard drive storing the footage died halfway through editing, so we can't go back and make it look nicer. All you get to see is the draft video. Sorry about that.
Well, you won.
Get your
Get your freaking radar cloaking cloak.
I'm gonna bring a bomb.
Oh.
Damn.
Excellent.
Look in English chat, by the way. Horizon Module 13. When can put more in slot? Hold on. There.
Soon DM.
Oh.
Oh yeah, hey, Com, guess what?
What?
I am a little under halfway to here they propose to call it more fun, anal flower, for example. What does it mean? What? Anal flower? What?
Turn to stone when you were gone. I turned to stone.
god, no way. That was fun.
Hey, I got 92 insignias.
The cruiser's still there.
You got
I got
92.
That was
I got
32.
32. Yeah,
You're just
get-
blind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was 32.
Heck.
Got him.
All of us just went, what?
I got
Holy-
261,000 synergy in my
Sun is shining in the sky. There ain't a cloud in sight. It stopped raining. Everybody's in the play. And don't you know it's a beautiful new day? Hey, running down the avenue. See how the sun shines brightly in the city. On the streets where once was pretty, Mr. Blue. Sky is living in the day. Hey, Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey, you with the pretty face, welcome to the human race. A celebration, Mr. Blue Sky's up there waiting, and today is the day we've waited for. Oh, Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue, it's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue, it's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at
Not cool, dude.
Mr. Blue, you did it right, but soon comes Mr. Night, creeping over. Now his hand is on your shoulder. Never mind, I remember you this way. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky, so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you.
Life is pain, I wanna die. He's just running around the freaking road. That generator heals fast.
Whoa, shit.
Oh, whoa.
What? What just happened to it?
Are you tired of the endless drudgery of 10-minute-long PvE missions resulting in mediocre loot, your boringly slow boss fights? Now you can get away from all that nonsense by devoting your life to seed chips. That's right, this video has been sponsored by Doritos. It's your boy, PodG, here back at it again with another meta review, and today we'll be covering the latest game-breaking mechanics in the form of seed chips. So, what are seed chips? Well, according to lore, they're supposed to be some form of experimental pirate technology with cross-compatibility across basically all ships. But in-game, they're highly powerful augments to your ship that can just about make you a god if you set them up properly. The majority of seed chips will grant buffs to your main weapon parameters such as accuracy, fire rate, damage, elemental damage, damage against aliens, and that's just scraping the surface. They can also give speed, energy, and regeneration bonuses, and lately they've also been able to modify shield statistic buffs. Let's take a look at a seed chip. Each chip has an icon, a name, and some stats. We managed to crack the code on how a chip's stats are determined within the first 3 days of release, and with some help from Lux we were able to confirm our theories as true. Depending on the rank of the chip, it will have between 1 and 4 modifiers. At most, 2 of these will be displayed in the chip's name and the others are unlisted. The chip's name would look something like X chip of Y, but if the chip is low enough rank that it has only a single modifier, it could be just X chip without the of Y. Higher ranked chips will have up to 2 additional bonuses that aren't included in the name, and have levels independent from the rest of the chip. Speaking of levels, each modifier has levels ranging from 0 to 5. Each level of a specific modifier has a separate name attributed to it, and you can tell how good a chip will be just from looking at the name. You can also tell how good it will be by taking a look at the image for the chip. The 2 modifiers displayed in the chip's name will also be displayed on the chip's icon through a code of various colored dots and lines. Each modifier has a set pattern of dots and lines, but the color of them will be gray, white, green, blue, purple, or orange depending on the modifier's level. Furthermore, each level of an effect will follow a similarly themed name, such as the Storm modifier being increased damage, with the better versions being Gale, Squall, Whirlwind, Hurricane, and Typhoon in order. For example, on this chip, Typhoon Chip of Heaviness, the Typhoon name is attributed to the general damage modifier and is the level 5 version. The top half of the chip's image is an orange damage modifier, and the bottom is a purple destroyer damage modifier. As with this chip, the first modifier in the name is found at the top and the second is on the bottom, but this isn't the end of a chip's level bonuses. Not only do the effects have levels, but the chip as an item can be leveled up, starting at Mark 1 with all the way through to Mark 5 being available, further increasing the effect bonuses. A well-trained eye can roughly estimate how well the chip will synergize with their build just from looking at the pattern on the image and denoting the effects present, the color matching the effects level, and the color of the bar at the bottom indicating the chip's level as a whole. Something to note though is that no chip is going to have 2 modifiers of the same type, regardless of level, and when looking through the bonuses, their order can seem pretty scrambled with the inclusion of the modifiers that don't show up in the chip's name. It's also worth noting that only the blue numbers in the seed chip can be upgraded, the yellow ones are fixed. Sometimes you'll find chips with non-black backgrounds and they may have some funky effects. Chips with blue backgrounds will have a feature we here at XMP called a compensated prefix, meaning the first name of the modifier on the chip will min-max its bonus, increasing the original modifier at the cost of another. This will always be made visible as the first bonus in the chip's description with a blue dot next to it, and will always be in the top half of the chip's image, allowing you to find out what the compensated effect is without having to look past name and icon. Just like normal seed chips, which is very convenient when scrolling through 100 chips trying to optimize a build. The same can be said for a legendary prefix, which can be found on a chip with a golden background and is also always listed as the first modifier in the chip description with a golden dot. A chip with a red background will normally have 2 legendary effects depending on its level. These don't change your weapon statistics at all, but can still dramatically increase your ship's power on the battlefield through the addition of various effects akin to strapping on an extra module or weapon. They can even go as far as to temporarily give your weapons aimbot, so think twice before reporting someone as a hacker. Technical jargon out of the way, what's the best seed chip is often a question that comes to the mind of people who just picked up one or two for the first time. The answer is simple, there is no generic best seed chip, only really good ones. The meta for chips is less about what chip is good on its own, and more about what chips that will modify my ship the best for what I'm looking for. Mediocre or bad chips that buff your damage in a way that works with your chosen ship and equipment is going to be noticeably better than even a great chip that buffs a parameter you aren't using, such as going with a thermal weapon but using chips that modify for kinetic or EM damage. Work with what your ship is good at, not against it. A while ago, there used to be a chip that was very meta regardless of what equipment you would want to otherwise modify for, arguably the best chip in the game. We and a few others gave it the nickname of the Smang chip. It has the damage redirection effect from Energy Converter, but in the form of a pulsar-like effect. When your ship would get low on health, it would reflect all incoming damage back to every ship looking at its target, regardless of their invisibility or distance.
This got out of hand very quickly and enabled players to deal billions of damage within the span of mere seconds due to a funky damage calculation for energy converter, scaling on math that we're 100% certain wasn't exactly set up with the game's balance in mind. Don't get me wrong, once the first 100 million damage went through, everything was dead already, so nothing would be there to receive the full severity of the effect, not even PGod. We had been developing a method to use this in PvE, however our strategy was incomplete until a man named Manzangares decided to publicly queue for defense contract, and a lot of random players took note of him getting everyone up to very high levels. After this, developers redid the math of the energy converter, and since the seed chip actually used the energy converter effect to do its dirty work, it got nerfed massively, completely removing this strategy and basically all other high-level strategies before the chip was introduced. A lot of seed chips also received massive nerfs around the same time, by anywhere between 50 and 90%, and cooldowns for legendary chips were also heavily increased to the point of being widely considered not worth the slots they occupy. Fortunately, 48 hours of enough players complaining later, and the developers reworked the nerfs that they had recently inflicted, with the exception of the energy converter's damage reflection effect, the smang chips that used it, compensated chips for max range, and the cooldowns for legendary effects. This brings most of the meta builds today, where they were mostly built around raw DPS with only a few optimizing for the legendary effects, mostly just for the memes on the side. Chips provide a lot of meme build opportunity. There are still ways to get negative critical hit damage and crit chance, and a lot of chips are still buggy as hell. Some of the legendary seed chips, for example, are completely busted, not in the sense that they're meta or overpowered, but that they cause all logic and reason to fall apart around them. For example, doubling an effect like the turtle's shield projected in front of your ship at high speed. Put 2 of these chips on, and upon reaching high speeds, you can enjoy watching your ship flail around helplessly as the 2 shields collide on top of each other, taking your ship wherever the wind decides, which is usually in really small buggy circles. If you don't have 2 of these chips, don't worry, you can still experience this effect by putting one on a Recon and using a holo ship. So with practical application of seed chips and meme chips in mind, I'll let you guys make your own PvP seed chip setups. For those of you who are looking for a serious alpha damage arena, I'd recommend speedrunning alien raid bosses. Damage provided by different effects is multiplicative. Across all your chips, all damage buffs of a certain type are added up, then all of another type are multiplied, given it applies to your weapon and target. For effective DPS, I'd use this formula. Total general damage multiplied by total elemental damage, multiplied by total Illidium damage if against an Illidium ship, multiplied by total alien damage if against an alien ship, multiplied by total destroyer damage if against a destroyer, multiplied by total fire rate, and then if you got really nice chips, you can factor in your critical modifiers, since you'll probably end up with a 100% critical hit chance anyway. What the formula essentially means is you shouldn't stack all your chips to boost a single parameter, since you would benefit better from 3 multiplicative 30% buffs than you would from a single 100% buff. This can lead to massive efficiency points if done correctly in special operations, since all Spec Ops bosses count as aliens, meaning modifying for alien damage will add another multiplier on top of what you do to standard chips. It gets even better though. Defiler also counts as a destroyer, as does the destroyer boss's shells, but not its cores, meaning modifying for extra damage against destroyers will yet again further multiply your damage. If you're worried about these being applied in PvP, allow me to ease your fears. Chips are disabled in standard PvP and competitive modes. The only time you can fight another player using chips is if you go to open space without station protection. So with all of that in mind, where do you get chips? Open space is the most efficient method in getting chips, but you can also find them in loot surges for any game mode. In open space, you may have noticed that cybers and crystalids have begun invading regions of our space, planning to turn humanity into a pile of dust. You can find and kill these in specific sectors being invaded, and you can tell if the sector is being invaded by looking at the corporate map, or closely looking at a sector in the standard map and looking for the faction icon, which is a red circle with an hourglass-like shape in them, not to be confused by the equally small red triangle of Jericho sectors. Killing these specific enemies has a chance to drop a container holding a seed chip. It should be noted that chips are bind on pickup. Once you touch it, you can't give it to another player even if you drop the container in space or are killed.
Wait, what? You picked up the
seed chip.
It's bind on pickup! Wait, no. Oh, the whole
farm
is ruined now!
There is a way around this, although convoluted. Attempting to pick up a seed chip with a full cargo hold will tell you the name of the chip without picking it up and binding it to your account. After farming for a bit, you'll notice that a lot of the chips you'll find are either very low rank or have very low level modifiers. If you pick up one that's ranked 5 or lower, drop it. It's not even worth your time. The more you farm, the more chips you will have. The more chips you will have, the better your build will become, and in turn, the easier it will be for you to farm more and better chips. Happy hunting.
Oh, are we gonna get some seed ship?
Bullseye.
What in the goddamn?
What? Fast as fuck, boy.
That's a lot of damage! Bullseye.
Welcome back to Weapon Review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Prolapse Burster. The Prolapse Burster is the most expensive single item in this entire game, probably worth more than the game itself at this point. When Yuri and I built ours, the brains and spines were being sold for 3,000 GS per. They're 12,000 or more now. When he first built it, Yuri said he was disappointed that he spent 400,000 GS on a single weapon, but now that they're so expensive, he's glad he did it. I have to agree with him. I think the weapon is worth the GS that we spent on it because we already have everything else in the game, but I don't think it would be worth several million GS even to us. We all know the devs never actually test anything, so I guess after 7 people managed to construct them, they got to see just how retardedly powerful it actually is, and began implementing trade taxes to prevent people from making any more of them, at least for a while. So let's see some stats on this gun. Wow, that's pretty trash from first glance. Or is it? 90 rounds per minute, 407 damage per shot with basically no crit chance. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Nice flight speed and okay range though. Your projectiles will land in under 1 second, meaning your lead angle isn't going to be that wide even at 5.3 kilometers, so that's nice. Spread is okay, I guess, but what the fuck is this overheat rate? You can shoot the gun for 1.5 seconds before it has to cool down. The name makes perfect sense now. Even holding the trigger, it can only fire in burst. Here's another interesting thing. 611 DOT AoE. This makes the weapon okay for damage, I guess. 90 rounds per minute for 1k per shot. Now don't get me wrong, that's still pretty AIDS, but at least it's better than Vulcan. It's a shame DOT AoEs don't stack, otherwise that could deal some actual damage. Now, let's upgrade it and put it on a destroyer. Vigilant is Empire, so it's going to have an innate 17% increase to its damage. Wait, what? 5k DPS? How did it suddenly go up so much without increasing the damage per shot? Typically, when accounting for the additional hard points when actually mounted to a ship, it adds the damage that all the turrets deal together as its listed damage per shot, like this Halo or this Mason, for example. Oh, 600 rounds per minute. See, I pulled a quick one on you. I subverted your expectations. I finagled your perspective into thinking that this gun is bad when it's really not bad, but now your mind is blown. Boom! This is a sequential fire weapon, like a mortar-type weapon. Each turret only has a fire rate of 90 rounds per minute, but a destroyer has quite a few hard points. Unfortunately though, unlike most other weapons, the accounted fire rate for the entire weapon group is already 600 rounds per minute, meaning that there is no way to meme this gun by increasing its fire rate because it's already capped out. However, what we can do instead is slap on 3 pulse dischargers. Your energy regeneration speed is now AIDS, but hey, look at that, more damage. Now let's throw in some implant 2B and a horizon. Boom! 8.5 kilometer range with 1 degree spread, but oof, we've lost our fancy short lead angle. Time for some implant 6C. Boom! But yikes, that overheat is still pretty short. It may have some high DPS, but having to fire in bursts is really going to hurt this. Shared coolers and supercooled charges help some, but 5.3 seconds. There's got to be a better way. Well, yeah, there is a better way. Sirius has a unique passive called Augmented Cooler, and unlike other unique passives, it isn't restricted to 1 per ship. Boom! Are you getting tired of me saying that yet? 7.1 seconds. That's actually not bad. Almost average heating now, but without really taking away from its damage potential. Thanks, Sirius. Got any more surprises for us? Oh, what's that? You do? Oh yeah, you're right. Sirius has the unique spec mod Attila Targeting Complex, which is a 40% damage buff without requiring the ship to become immobile. It's 5% less damage than Spatial, but it allows the weapon to take advantage of the Federation's bonus critical hit chance modifier when flying above 90% of your max speed. As we discussed last season, critical hit chance in Star Conflict is additive, not multiplicative, meaning it stacks way faster. For example, if you have a weapon with 10% critical hit chance and you add an additional 10%, it becomes 20% instead of multiplying to 110% of 10% for a total of 11%. So this weapon's low base critical hit chance isn't that much of an issue. In fact, you could mod your build and have a dart on your team to have basically 60% crit chance. One more thing, Sirius has an EM level bonus, meaning we can increase our projectile flight speed to the point that once again our shots are landing in under a second. And now it's even more accurate, which doesn't actually matter because this weapon, just like the plasma gun, has Hyperion Syndrome. It gets more accurate the longer you fire, eventually becoming 100% accurate, and unlike the Vigilant, which is going to have noticeably higher damage, with the Sirius, you don't have to sit still to take advantage of your special module's damage buff, which is really good for this weapon because as you can see, just like any other sequential fire weapon, the Prolapse Burster fires faster when there are more hardpoints in the selected firing arc, meaning this is a broadside weapon as all destroyers except for the Invincible, the Ze'Ta, and the Black Ghost have 6 weapons on each side, 3 on the top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. Every destroyer with standard weapon placements will have an optimal firing arc of about 15 degrees pitched up or down from directly broadside and will severely struggle when firing backwards. This is very important to know when designing a build centered around increasing the efficiency of this weapon because Spatial Stabilizer has a serious negative impact on it. This is part of why an Attila Sirius has a significantly stronger synergy with this weapon than other ships will. Now here's something interesting. This weapon has a DOT AoE, which for some reason procs every 0.5 seconds even though it's listed as every 1 second. But because this weapon has that effect, sitting within 1 kilometer of an enemy destroyer equals massive smang, because destroyers not only take extra damage from enemies within 1 kilometer, they also take extra damage from explosives. However, unfortunately, over half of your listed damage per shot is coming from the DOT AoE procs, and as we covered last season, PvE level bonuses do not affect secondary damages from AoEs, making things like the Prolapse Burster, Phase Suppressor, nukes, and guided torpedoes far less effective than expected in PvE. Overall, I would say this gun has to be the biggest meme weapon in all of Star Conflict. It shoots 8.5 kilometers with basically 100% accuracy, along with it having an element of aim assistance because it's a projectile weapon. You basically have an 8.5 kilometer front blaster that rotates. This weapon has never really known a meta outside of Sector Conquest, and likely never will. Its ability to deal consistent damage accurately from far range makes incorporating it into a team comp very easy. However, the only other place it saw any relevance was in Spec Ops due to its higher DPS than Halo. However, now with chips, Halo scales much faster than the Prolapse Burster, and destroyers aren't even used for DPS anymore. Now they're only used as photon spammers to channel Dagnith projects. Very interesting weapon. I rate 8 out of 8. Actually, I would only rate it a 6 out of 10 because it costs so much now. But what about the Black Ghost? I'd mentioned that earlier. Well, it's okay. Its special module is a massive WTF because why are destroyers flying around like actual interceptors or fighters? The world may never know. It's basically an exact copy of the Vigilant for base stats, except in place of the Empire's 17% damage bonus, there is a 7% bonus because it's not Empire. Everything else is the same though. Unfortunately, its passive layout is locked, but that's fine. It's an alright layout for a hull-based destroyer, but I do have to say, I'm rather disappointed that there's no way for us to strap 3 Vernier engines on the thing and spin faster than a Tyken. The ship cost $10 and was only available to fly for a few days. I would say if it was allowed more meme potential, it would be much better, but as it stands, I would say it's worth $2 of the 10 it cost.
It's 2 pee-pee poo-poos. Don't like it that much. Sorry gamers, I gotta be honest.
The module that came with it, the main caliber, I would say is also worth another $1, even though for some reason upgrading it reduces its damage. So that's a 3 out of 10 dollars for me on the Black Ghost DLC. It's funny to mess around with, but kinda a waste of money considering its extremely limited usage. If you don't want to get the Prolapse Burster for 1.6 to 3 million GS, you will have to go through some major farming. Assuming you have already unlocked the Ze'Ta's special module Fast Swarm and the suppression node before the Plasma Burster blueprint, this project will cost you 9 brains, 8 spines, 700 Xenocrystals, 70 million credits, and 7 million XP. Let's go through these in order. To make the brains, you will need 20 million credits, 1800 iridium, 45 crystal ganglions, 180 translucent neuronets, 180 cortical columns, and 900 monocrystals. To make the spines, you will need 20 million credits, 1600 iridium, 240 vitreous neuropills, 180 translucent neuronets, 180 cortical columns, and 800 monocrystals. So in total, you'll need 110 million credits, 3400 iridium, 7 million XP, 360 translucent neuronets, 45 crystal ganglions, 360 cortical columns, 240 vitreous neuropills, 1700 monocrystals, and 700 xenocrystals. Let's say, theoretically, after looking at all those numbers, you somehow still think it'd be worth your time to farm instead of getting a minimum wage job and putting in about 500 hours to buy it in less time than it would take to farm it. Well, you're going to need to know how to get that stuff. First step is the credits. Credits are the easiest part of this to farm. You can get all the credits you need by simply farming for the other components. You'll need to run each farm so many times that by the end of it, you'll have passed credit cap in total income by about 50 times. Next step is to get the XP, also commonly referred to by veterans as synergy. This is by far the easiest step other than the credits. Running your Ze'Ta during the farms for the other components isn't ideal, so before you set out on farming for everything else, set up your Ze'Ta using balanced swarm and an auto weapon build. Then set yourself to a simple kinetic resist, hyper regen, or hybrid build on your Ze'Ta and park it out in either Station New Eden or Mendez 9. Shoot a station guard and go AFK. Come back in about 10 minutes, redock, and you'll have gained 200,000 XP on the ship, and you can run this a few times to get your XP up there faster than pretty much any other conventional method. If you have seed chips, going to alien zones will actually get it done faster, but you have to actively play, and the chance of dying is about 6 times higher due to the 3 times and 2 times damage multipliers you'll be taking to your fucking face. Now that you have all your XP, things start to get complicated. you're going to have to scrounge up 360 translucent neuronets. The way you get these is by running the worst spec ops in the game, Return to Eden. Apparently they also drop from other spec ops, but RTE has the highest drop chance because the devs know nobody would play this piece of shit game mode if it didn't. If you've got a competently chipped wing, it should only take about 10 minutes per run, and giving neuronets a theoretically generous drop chance of 0.5% per loot search and 8 searches per run, you'll have a 4% chance of getting a neuronet per run. Based on this percentage, you'll have to successfully complete Return to Eden 25 times per neuronet, or 9,000 times to get all the neuronets you need. After that, you'll need to run 20 PvP battles on ships of rank 15 or higher with the Ganglion mission active, and you'll need to do that 45 times for 900 PvP battles over the course of 45 days. Next comes the Prolapse God. You'll have to successfully kill the Prolapse God without dying 180 times to get your cortical column. Finally comes the 240 Vitreous Neuropills, 1700 Monocrystals, and 700 Xenocrystals. The most efficient way to get Monocrystals and Xenocrystals is to join a Sector Conquest team in the corporate part of the game and run Monocrystal and Xenocrystal sectors. If the corps leaders are uninterested in these rewards, you'll have to find another corp. Run corporate territory battles every day, and eventually you'll make it to a position in the corps leaderboard that you get worthwhile rewards. As for the Vitreous Neuropills, your best bet there is to live in Russia or Eastern Europe and figure it out on your own through trial and error. Unfortunately, I live in the United States and thus kind of don't have access to the portal sectors due to time zones. I can't tell you how any of those mechanics work, as I have never been able to run a single portals battle, and I'm not even sure if your Dreadnought is involved in the game mode anymore. If you also live in the Western Hemisphere, then I'm sorry, but you're out of luck. You don't have the option of farming for it completely for free, as you're going to have to fork over some cash to the Russian and European players who have access to portals, because portals is the only location Vitreous Neuropills drop. Apparently it's pretty cancerous, and battles are typically held in 1v5 fashion against the Supercorp in the time zone contesting the sector, so good luck with that. Let's say after hearing all of the farming you're going to have to do, thousands upon thousands of battles, PvP, raids, and open space where you're constantly under the threat of piracy, you somehow are still motivated to farm. I will save SecCon for later this season. PvE guides on RTE and other missions will also come out later in the season, but for now, let's talk for a moment about the Prolapse God. This is the Prolapse God. Why is it called the Prolapse God? Well, the devs wanted us to call it the Woodlouse, but it was pretty unanimous in the Star Conflict meme community that this was a dumb name. So the main English-speaking farming wing started calling it the Prolapse God, because here's what this thing does. Let's say this is your wing. Here is the Prolapse God. It's gonna start working its way up your group's metaphorical ass. It just kind of wriggles in there, you know? And if you try and stop it or pull it out, all these little hooks along the sides, they just kind of grab your colon. And it activates yeet mode, ejecting from your anus at 8 kilometers per second, forcing you to God spawns once every 2 hours. First spawn is at reset. And given a decent wing composition with moderately skilled players involved, you could get about 6 to 7 kills per spawn cycle. You're only really limited to how many server instances are loaded during the spawn tick, and by how fast you can kill the PGod on your server instance and move to another instance before they are all killed. Theoretically, if you stayed up for 24 hours or slept for like 1 hour every 2 hours or something in between spawn cycles, you could get around 72 kills per day if you can manage to get in a wing every hour. PGod only spawns on loaded instances, meaning that there has to be a player in the instance to keep it open at the start of the hour, or the server has to have been recently occupied. To guarantee a spawn, you can use what is known as an instance anchor. Someone goes out to the server before it spawns to ensure that the server is online at the start of the cycle. Alternatively, if you don't have multiple people, or you do but your group isn't fast enough out of another activity, you can go to a server that is already occupied by other players. The only problem is that server instances are restricted to a certain number of players and might not be able to load your full group if there are already other people present. However, this can be used to your advantage. Spamming multiple full wings will force new servers to come online to hold the additional players, and if you do this before the PGod spawns, you can get more instances. However, there is a limit on how many can be spawned. There can only ever be 7 PGods spawned per hour, 2 United States PGods, 2 European, 2 Russian, and 1 South Asian PGod. Although typically there will only be 4 or 5 divided among USA, EU, and RU servers. If you want the reward for killing it, you'll have to either get the killing blow or be on the list of assisting ships. Keep in mind, if you don't shoot it, debuff it, or buff an ally that gets the killing blow, your place on the list of assisting ships can be replaced by another player. This means if you die, you can be replaced during the respawn process and you won't get a reward.
Our previous guides on fighting PGod are long since outdated, and the previous mechanics are no longer all factors of success in a competent wing or solo with good seed chips. I'll briefly go over the mechanics though anyway, just to put the cards on the table so you know what you're up against in a smaller group. First of all, Prolapse God scales resistance based on how many people are shooting it, similar to Crystal Plates and Implants 9A and 9C, but on a much larger scale. Its resistance with a wing firing on it ranges between around 75 and 90% damage reduction. Soloing the fight seems to yield only about 25 to 30% reduction, resulting in wings that take about 2 minutes, only ending up roughly 30% faster than flying solo with good chips. But who the hell wants to spend that long farming chips? Second, its stats change with every instance based on modifiers that are displayed in the chat the moment it spawns. If you are anchoring an instance and are there when it spawns, you'll be able to see what the modifiers are. Entering an instance after it has already spawned, and you'll have to figure out what the modifiers are by observing it in combat. Typically for base stats, it seems to have around 400 million total health, but my combat log has been bugged for a few months and nobody knows how it got that way, so I can't tell you exactly how much hull and shield it has, but shields aren't even relevant in this fight as you can just take a command and completely drain them. Most of its modifiers aren't important. For example, it can spawn more adds more frequently, or it siphons shields, has shorter module cooldowns, or increased thermal resistance, but there are a few that make the fight almost impossible to new players or even veterans who have no idea how to fight it. Thermal Nebula is a modifier that spawns a barely visible thermal AoE on the player's ship, dealing 5,000 thermal damage per tick, which travels with the player, dealing damage to other nearby players. And of course, if it hits a destroyer, it's an AoE, so it will deal massively increased damage. If you're not in a wing with an engineer, or you're not built with seed chips to solo it as a guard or an NG based on regen per hit, you're going to die if it targets you with this. Not even emergency barrier will protect you. The only way to survive is to go 800 meters per second or faster in a warp. When the field spawns on top of you, if you're going fast enough, you can travel outside of its radius before it takes any damage. The next cancerous modifier is called Recovery from the Ashes, usually referred to as Ashes by farming wings. It will regenerate a certain percentage of its health depending on what it killed. Now again, my combat log is broken, so I can't tell you the exact percentages, but it seems to regenerate, 10% if a destroyer dies and less if a smaller ship dies. As for equipment, it has 6 things that it uses every run regardless of its modifiers. A supercharged boson cannon with firing mechanics akin to a halo launcher, heavy repair drones, a buffed plasma turret, some sort of multi-phase shield that is likely just its immunity module, and chonky variants of a pyro-emitter and tempest launcher. It also has a capacitor you can destroy. At first I thought this was its special module in the form of its yeet, however destroying it has no implications on the fight other than dealing some extra true damage bypassing its resistance. Both the Enclave emitter, sometimes referred to as the Prolapse emitter, Hot and Ready, or Gigabeam, and the Tempest launcher, sometimes referred to as Missile Spam or Prolapse launcher, both have regenerative effects. If a player dies to either of these attacks, the PGod will regenerate health. Although it would seem after the introduction of seed chips and its massively boosted health from 3 million to 400 million, the regeneration has not been proportionally increased. So this isn't that big of an issue unless you're in a small group or solo and you don't have chips to fight it with. But at that point you're kind of fucked anyway. Like a normal Tempest launcher, this one locks onto you with 2 missiles, each traveling faster than 800 meters a second. You could still outrun them with a warp or a teleportation, but it's best to just dodge them as the rotation speed is significantly lower than standard. If you do get hit, you're probably getting sent to the Shadow Realm from this kind of damage unless you tank for kinetic. The Giga Beam deals way more damage though, and you're definitely getting sent to the Shadow Realm if you aren't prepared for it. While it may look about the same as a pyro emitter but on a larger scale, it acts more like a BFG. Everything in that general direction dies. The beam itself is projected 10 kilometers and is deceivingly small. The animation is the center of an AoE field reaching about 1 kilometer in radius around the beam. Depending on where you are, you can even die from behind the projector, as anything caught within the boundaries of this invisible AoE field receives the full damage. The last noteworthy mechanic in this fight is the form of a negative effect wipe and a yeet mode. This usually happens right before it either uses its emitter or tempest, or both. Yeet mode and the negative effect wipe are not the same action. However, if it activates yeet mode, it will simultaneously activate the negative effect wipe. This is due to the wipe being triggered by any push-pull effects, including but not limited to its own yeet mode, hot glue chips, any gravitational anomalies such as gravi chips, Gothardu cannon or gravi lens, any repelling effects such as repelling beam and heavy repelling drone, and various other effects that will force the ship into moving or not moving such as trap mines. CCs, however, cannot trigger the wipe, but are still blocked by it while the wipe is active. The effect wipe has an audio-visual cue of a transparency effect which is usually accompanied by some idiot spamming gravity chips on it. As for the yeet mode, it sends the ship up to 8 kilometers backwards, activating the negative effect wipe and typically cloaking as it travels, stopping only if it runs into a scene physics entity. It becomes immune to collision damage, but you will still get fucking obliterated if it touches you going that fast. Yuri, why would you Oh, Jesus
Why would I
Christ,
run?
it almost ran into me. Now that we know the important mechanics of the fight, let's talk about how to kill it. I'll only go over how to fight this in a wing, because if you plan on killing it solo, chances are you're either already skilled enough to figure out how, or you have enough good seed chips to make it work even if you don't know how to optimize the fight. First thing you're going to need is a wing leader. The wing leader does not have to be your fleet or field commander, that can be anyone in the group. But they do have to be a pilot with enough experience to know how every ship in the wing will perform. Your wing lead will invite people and coordinate what ships to bring. Keep in mind, coordinating with newer players is very difficult because most of them either do not have any of the ships required, or some of the ships but no equipment for them. Your wing leader will have to be skilled in managing a wing's composition in and out of hangar to work everything out in a timely manner and begin the fight as quickly as possible to avoid wasting instances. If your wing has seed chips, really anything will work as long as you have an engineer running WASDOM. But let's go over the current best possible wing comp. If your players don't have seed chips, this wing is actually optimized well enough that it will work without them. In your wing, you will need 1 engineer, 1 tackler, 1 or 2 commands, 2 recons, and the rest are DPS roles such as gunship or lurf. If your group does not have seed chips, you may want to swap out players until you have 1 guard and 2 ECMs. These combined with the engineer are the 4 most important roles for an unshipped wing. If preparing for a fight before the PGod spawns, everyone can enter the instance ahead of schedule. However, if searching for a PGod at any point after it spawns, only 1 person is allowed to leave the hangar at any given moment. This player is designated based on who has the fastest hard drive in the group and who can afford to instance search. The ideal player for this role would be a player with an M.2 SSD and a vast wealth of Iridium. The instance anchor will enter the server and look for a surviving PGod. If one is located, everyone jumps in the sector and fight begins. If your wing does not have any chips, the instance anchor will have an additional job to perform by bringing any rank 7 or higher command. The build will be centered around getting in, depleting shields, and getting out fast, implying shield havoc, penetrating beam, gravity scanner, IR flares, and cruise engine. Keep in mind that this command is not the same command that occupies a slot in the wing comp. It is merely a way to prime the fight and drain the shields, reducing the time in battle by like 25%. I don't know, no combat log. When PGod spawns, the instance anchor will travel to it and inform the wing to jump to the instance. If they are there before it spawns, they can relay the information from the modifiers listed in chat to the wing lead to modify the wing strategy. As long as there are no other ships of equal or higher aggro priority, the PGod will lock the command. At this point, the player should start a wide orbit around it. This will cause it to attempt to fire the Giga Beam. As it reorients to face them, it will stop moving, giving the command an opportunity to activate Shield Havoc, which requires the target to stay within an AoE field to be affected. This will drain almost its entire shield with a single activation, and Penetrating Beam can take out the rest. All ship builds involved are required to bring an emergency barrier even at the sacrifice of kit efficiency, and no ships are permitted to bring any equipment that will trigger a negative effect wipe. I'll explain a few roles further in detail, but I brought in some of the other cast members that didn't get their usual segments in this episode to fill out the rest. One of the most important roles to fill in your wing are your recons. Ironically, the scouting ships become your main source of DPS here. Your wing should have 2 recons, one a Titan and the other a Leonina. The Titan's job is to bring the orb gun, crystal mines, spy drones, and a crystal infiltrator. The orb gun will act as DPS, crystal mines will reduce how frequently the Prolapse God can activate its modules, spy drones act as a 50% anti-regen and will reduce its healing, and the infiltrator buffs the team's damage output by double dipping about 36% of all incoming damage for the rest of the wing. Infiltrator is pretty nice. It takes the raw damage before resistances are applied and then deals it again. Conveniently, this means resistance only applies once to each damage source, as opposed to once on the incoming damage and a second time on the pre-reduced double dip damage. The Leonina's job is to bring Tracer Plasma Gun and either Active Screen or Nanolocator depending on what the wing leader decides. The Tracer Plasma Gun triple dips the team's damage at about 20%, acting as a second, less efficient infiltrator. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately, because otherwise the game would crash, Tracer and Infiltrator do not stack off of each other and work independently, meaning each can only repeat damage from a single incoming source once rather than bouncing it back and forth between each other. The active screen reduces energy regeneration, boosting the efficiency of the ECMs, and also acts as an almost constant anti-regen with 11 seconds of downtime in between periods of 95% heal reduction. A good choice if the Prolapse God has ashes. If the Prolapse God doesn't have ashes and your team already has other ships reducing resistance, the wing leader may decide that the increased resistance reduction from Nanolocator may be a better option. Berserker is an okay alternative to Leonina. However, the Leonina has a 20% reloading rate bonus, allowing you to make use of active screen or Nanolocator more frequently. Both Infiltrator and Tracer deal back as thermal, so using seed chips to modify for thermal damage, damage to destroyers, and general damage is going to increase the damage repetition values significantly, easily granting over 100% bonus depending on the chips you have access to and their upgrade levels. Modifying for the Tracer's EM damage is pointless as the entire focus is on the damage repetition. Other helpful bonuses on the Leonina would be critical hit chance and module reloading speed. Chips for the Titan are a bit more complicated. Ideally, you would modify for damage, damage to destroyers, and thermal damage again. However, the orbs have an extremely high damage potential, and searching for chips with additional bonuses to reduce weapon heating, EM damage, critical hit chance, and critical damage are going to channel the orbs back through Tracer for even more damage. Generally, unless your wing has multiple Titans, you should fit for your Infiltrator's bonus rather than DPS. If your wing has multiple Titans though, only one of them should even have an Infiltrator installed, and the rest should be built for orbs. An important thing to keep in mind is that unlike other DPS builds, the orb gun was designed in concept almost specifically to kill destroyers, and it outshines basically everything else, critting for 1 million or more damage in solo with a set of unupgraded lower level chips at insanely high fire rate. But of course, with the scaling resistances of being in a wing, this gets brought down to around 100,000.
Hello everyone, it's me, Hibrowski, otherwise known as the old host of SecCon Bravo before I disappeared for several seasons. At this point, you probably know me better as the Warframe admin, even though I don't really play Warframe anymore, but I also don't play Star Conflict. Regardless, they're letting me come back for a mini-segment about guard frigates. Guards are outdated and no longer relevant to the meta. However, if your group does not have chips, you're going to need a guard to keep you alive. The January 2018 event exclusive, now DLC, Object NY18 is the best chip for the job here because it has a Team Overshield, Dome Missile Defense System, and Energy Systems Destabilizer, which along with Leonina, will increase the effectiveness of the ECM's energy draining dramatically by straight up removing the Prolapse God's ability to generate energy while the ECMs drain. The Saucer pilot and the Leonina pilot should be in coordination on when they use their energy blocking modules. Speaking of energy though, surprise, the Prolapse God has even less energy now because Guard's special thermal weapon, the Destructor, drains even more energy. If you don't have Object NY18 because you weren't here for the event and haven't purchased the DLC after the event concluded, you can actually take any Guard frigate. The one with the 50% range bonus such as the T-Rex Mark II is preferred because the Guard frigate is only really necessary for the purpose of missile shield. Just let your wing leader know so they can inform the DPS ECM to switch to Energy Newt. If you have access to it, the Tormentor S is the ideal ship for the job, as it not only has the 50% range bonus, but it also has active missile shield, which is better than the Dome MDS, but the Saucer is still better because it's actives while the Prolapse God isn't off in the distance firing missiles. There was a strategy that could be employed by a wing of mostly these things, aided by an engineer, a Stratotackler, and 2 Recons. This strategy involves sitting in the Prolapse emitter and energy converting the damage back at it. We've tried it before seed chips, but it ended up taking longer than a typical run, and it took too much effort to coordinate a wing like that again. Paps tried it alone after chips were introduced and was able to kill the PGod about 3-4 energy converts worth of damage. However, now after the energy converter rework, taking this module to the fight is entirely pointless. If your group does have chips, the presence of a guard is not even necessary. In fact, it may hamper how quickly you can take down the PGod by reducing the damage being thrown at you that you can redirect back at it with funky shield chips.
Alright, last non-strictly DPS role. That's right, it's your boy, Suka Bazooka here, otherwise known as Coffee. Back at it again after 8 months of not existing. And today, we're not actually doing WAS God. Instead, we'll be revisiting the Brock. If you recall last season, we took an extensive look into the Brock while it was the pizza bus and had an 80% healing yield bonus. The Brock normally does not actually have the highest yield for commitment. That award goes to the Paulus. Commitment scales off your capacitor tank, similar to the mass shield generator, but with a much higher efficiency. There are 3 high-rank ships that can fit commitment: the Brock, the Paulus, and the ship it comes with, the Grizzly. Taking a quick look at the base capacitor tank for each of these, we can see that the Brock is the lowest at 1053, and Paulus at the highest with 1176, with the Grizzly just slightly lower at 1147. If we throw on max capacitor builds, despite having an additional capacitor slot, the Brock only has 4,356 compared to the Paulus, which gets 4,545 with 2 capacitor slots. And the Grizzly is once again in between at 4,396. On the Paulus, all allies within range will receive just over 28,000 shields. Under perfect conditions, in a custom battle with 32 players, 12 bots, and 8 Dreadnought combat drones, all capable of receiving the full shield supply, the Paulus can regenerate almost 1.5 million shields with the press of a button. Now think about what the Brock can do with the 80% bonus. Under the same theoretical conditions, the Brock is now able to regenerate over 2.5 million. Although the Brock is not best for commitment under theory crafting, due to it having 3 capacitor slots, it has the best commitment in practice when an emergency barrier is included in the build, and it does have its special module, Gremlin Drones. You can fire the Gremlin Drones to instantly destroy the Prolapse emitter if you catch it before it fires, somewhat negating the need for an ECM, and it heals allies in the line. The fit for the Brock is very simple: Wasdom, Commitment, Explosive Restoration, Mass Shield Generator, and a Warp Gate. How to play the Brock is actually a little more complicated than the build, because you have to manage the health bars of an entire wing. First thing is the Wasdom. You always want to have this procced on as many things as possible. This includes the Prolapse God and any adds that it spawns. Every time anyone shoots anything sparkly, they receive 15% damage output as healing in return, including chipped damage and recon double and triple dip damage, allowing you to have so much healing that you can actually tank the emitter and tempests even on a destroyer with 6 times multiplier to the damage you take. Now keep in mind, if there are any players spamming Gravy, you'll have to manage everyone's health without the use of Wasdom, because the PGod's negative effect wipe will clear the sparkly bits. If you use Gravy effect, A is for you're an asshole, B is for you're a fucking brainlet, and C is for the cortical columns you won't be getting anymore after your wing leader and any other wings that see it rightfully ban you from joining them. Nice work making your engineer's job like 20 times harder to keep your dumbass alive. Next is Commitment. This one you do not want to cycle on cooldown. Remember, the more energy you have in your capacitor, the more it will heal, meaning you should only use it at max cap unless someone needs it right then and there. Keep an eye on your team's shield health. Typically, a wing leader or fleet commander will have to play Brock because they will be the best at keeping an eye on everyone's health and make judgments on when to heal. For example, if an interceptor or fighter is low on shields and begs for heals, but has full hull, it is better to use a Gremlin drone or mass shield generator on them, saving commitment for when a frigate or destroyer is low on shield to get the most out of its yield. On that note, mass shield generators should be cycled when commitment is on cooldown, that way there's a more consistent supply of outgoing shield regeneration. When any member of the wing is low on hull, you'll need to activate Explosive Restoration to prevent them from dying to any stray shots that deal 10,000 damage for whatever reason. Any members of the wing that wants hull healing will have to sit within 1 kilometer radius of the Prolapse God and should already be within 1 kilometer of you if they want to receive healing. If they don't, and then complain that you didn't heal them, then they are at fault for making a mistake and therefore are bad. Got 'em. Last active module is the Warp Gate. Frigates in general are slow, and the Warp Gate will allow slower ships in the wing to return to optimal range quickly. Last thing of note is the passive build. Basically, you're just channeling commitment and Wasdom. Oh yeah, the majority of this entire video script was written in November, and at that point, the Hammerhead didn't exist. If your wing has chips, Hammerhead is definitely the way to go. Rate of fire, damage, kinetic damage, damage to destroyers, critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and weapon heating reduction are ideal chips. Due to the Hammerhead being a rank 17, it has access to the most powerful chips in the game. putting it alongside the Project 1011 in power comparison. However, keep in mind using the mobile barrier in its current bugged state puts you just under the gravity spammers on the totem pole of stupidity, because your allies won't be able to shoot the PGod, meaning your entire wing has damage and healing turned off until your module goes on cooldown.
Hey guys, Resident ECM Pilot Noglifer here, and I'll be teaching you how to fly an ECM. Well, ECMs aren't meta anymore due to the presence of chips. If your wing doesn't have chips, your ECMs are going to keep you alive. Your objective in the fight as an ECM is to stop the Prolapse God from using its Kill Everyone modules. When you're flying around on a ship that doesn't have a stable burn, you may have noticed when you're afterburning and you try to activate a module, you might not have enough energy to do so. This means you are bad at managing your energy economy. However, the Prolapse God is a god and therefore is not bad at managing its energy, but we can force it to be. Your first line of defense is going to be the energy neutralizing missiles. This will prevent the Prolapse God from having enough energy to activate its modules, keeping everyone alive. Eventually though, it will yeet off somewhere and start to use its modules. Your next job as ECM is to get within range and use Ion Diffuser on the Prolapse God after the transparency particles fade. This will deactivate its prolapse emitter and any repair drones, saving your stasis generator for if it begins firing its prolapse tempest. If it ignores stuns, which sometimes it does, you will bring RSS, or spare system sabotage, to prevent it from regenerating basically its entire health bar if anyone dies. An important thing to keep note of is when it yeets, you have a lot of distance to cover in order to stun it, so you'll need to bring a ship with a 50% range bonus. The best ship for the job is the August 2018 event exclusive rank 17, the Derwin. It has a third stun that, when used properly, will regenerate the user's hull. You have 2 remaining jobs as ECM. If you are Derwin and there is nobody anchored when the Prolapse God spawned, your fleet commander may order you to test for ashes by using your special module, since ashes heals off drones and holograms dying, as well as players. If the Prolapse God does have ashes, Derwin is not allowed in the fight. You will have to take an alternative ship, for example, the Storm Viking. Your last job, designated by Wing Lead, is to fly DPS, full anti-regen, or full energy neutralization, depending on the circumstances. You and your partner ECM will have to coordinate your energy neutralizing missile usage. One person should use their entire cartridge before the other person begins firing. Missiles can be conserved very efficiently, allowing for mistakes if both pilots coordinate using energy absorber between missiles being fired. Last thing to keep in mind is one of the ECMs should go anti-regen and the other either DPS or energy neutralization. The reason to have one of them go anti-regen instead of both DPS or one DPS and one energy neutralization is because the Recons, which should be the only other interceptors in the instance, aren't going to bring phase suppressor.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to And the Bad Continues. This is kind of a special episode of this podcast because I've been asked over by my friends over at Store Conflict to do a little something for them, and what better way to do it than in my podcast. So without too much further ado, but a little bit more explanation, you may know me as Yuri Von Fleury, but I was up to some shenanigans and someone stole my in-game name named Mesa Guru. I love shenanigans. Anyway, so that being said, you might know me as The Bad if you've seen me on my alt, or you could possibly know me as Chernobyl, and recently I have just changed the name to Sushi Pizza. Listen back to a few podcasts if you want to know where that one came from. So, on with it. So here's the thing. I'm here to explain on how to fly a command. You may have noticed that certain commands have a 20% offensive bonus. These are all great, but the best command to bring to the game is Loki. It's a premium DLC, meaning if you didn't buy it for GS back in 2015, you would have to drop some cash down and pick it up. But it has a 25% offensive bonus, and the kicker here is it has access to the highest ranked modules. You'll be able to bring the standard command buff, the Valkyrie, the Aegis. I said that wrong, but I don't care. The coding polarizer. The last is up to you. If you want to bring a gravity or some sort of multi-purpose, knock yourself out. So, in your CPU slot, you should have improved charge algorithms as one of your premiums. And your second premium, let's put it in the weapon slot, that is the Liquidator X. I mean, after all, who doesn't want to liquidate someone? This helps you to reduce the resistance spam. Now, if you don't have the Loki, there are 3 other worthwhile commands you can bring. The Granite can buff the team's fire rate when ads die. And although it doesn't directly say so in the weapon description, the combat log implies that the energy discharge reduces enemy hull and shield resistance as well. With this, you can choose to bring Anti-Sabotage 2.1 to prevent the enemy's ECMs from turning your team's weapons against each other, or some sort of multi-purpose. Another option is the Rank 6 Neuron. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the same effects for the standard modules, but it has the highest capacitor volume build out of the ships that can bring in reserve energy circuits, which can give at most a 62% rate of fire bonus, directly increasing the DPS by another 62% multiplicative after other effects apply. Which brings us to the final command ship in the list, which is the Dot. Now, the Dot has the 20% offensive bonus. Its special front shield blocks more damage than a standard diffusion shield, and its unique module, the Harmonic Drive, increases your team's critical hit chance by 10% and your own crit hit chance by a theoretical 136% if everyone happens to be in range. This, paired with the Dot special weapon, the Quantum Railgun, decreases your module cooldown by a theoretical 41%, giving the Dot the highest uptime for the Valkyrie out of all the ships available. Ships to keep an eye out are ones that offer you fast module reloading times. Well, that's kind of it. You know, it's not a long bit, but I enjoyed stepping in for my friends and reading this part about command ships, even though I don't fly them much. Anyway, cheers.
Hey everyone, host of FDEF Space D&D campaign and also the owner of the bank here, being given some advertisement opportunity in trade for reading a script. Tacklers and Prolapse God. Ironically, one of the worst ships available, the Lance Bartel becomes the best ship to bring to this fight due to a few specific parameters. It's a rank 11, so there's access to one of the highest level target painters. It also has Stretto, its unique active. Most importantly, has a 25% effects of bonus. The Prolapse God has quite a lot of resists, so on its own, target painter won't do all that much. When combined with photon stacking, a Stretto gun system, a Liquidator X, and a Nanolocator, it's going to be noticeably higher damage for everyone. As for slowing effects, it isn't necessary for Prolapse God to completely stop, just be slow enough to avoid it, leaving the AoE missile debuff fields. In a wing, this is generally very manageable, as everyone will be hiding on one side of it to avoid getting hit by the plasma turret and Tempest launcher, and the Prolapse God will keep spinning in place as long as its target's not in front of it. Pathfinder and Sawtooth are also good choices for a tackler, because despite not having the 25% effects of bonus, they still have access to the Stretto gun, along with Maneuver Booster passive shield modifier, which gives a greater debuff than Plasma Minigun, and is applied constantly when in range. Unfortunately, the Stretto gun system does not stack more than once, but combined with other debuffs, it will be a nice addition. Gravity Beamer, Target Painter, Engine Suppressor, and Slowing Field Missiles are going to be other key components to the build. Seed chips aren't key to this, however a basic damage build, specializing into all applicable damage bonuses, will be ideal. Increased damage, increased elemental damage matching your main weapon, increased damage to destroyers, fire rate, critical hit chance, and critical damage will all apply in this fight and multiply off each other. About the advertisement, you should come check out Space D&D, it's pretty cool. Also invest in IBZMC brand e-waste PCs. With the whole coronavirus thing, my campus is shut down, so we don't have a whole lot of room to store them, so let me know if you have any interest in that. About half of FDEF runs on IBZMC brand tech, so that's not all IBZMC has available. We offer in-game credit storage beyond credit cap, with a base interest of 0.02% per cycle. If you invest in money market, you can get up to 9%. Come and visit us at the FDEF shipyard aboard the Nemesis class dreadnought, designated Zelavian's mother. Deck 16, 6th block, right across from the mess hall. IBZMC, invest in your future.
Hello guys, I'm an average T1 player, and I'll be your instructor today. Welcome to DPS 101.
What are you, fucking retarded?
Oh, wait, that's in the 1,000 meter range. That's not fair.
I know.
DPS 101 is proudly sponsored by ISC LRA.
There used to be a very strong meta involving destroyers due to the insane resistances that wings used to face during PGod fights. The main way to get around this was with target painter, nanolocator, and photon emitters. Photon emitter reduces an enemy's EM resistance for 30 seconds. The effect can stack up to 4 times, but adding another stack doesn't refresh the timer of a previous stack, so continuous firing required building for energy regeneration on a photon spammer build. I suppose now with seed chips this would still work. Module reloading, EM damage, general damage, and destroyer damage would all seriously amplify the effect. However, taking a destroyer into PGod is risky these days. PGods go down very fast with chipped wings, and chances are high that if you take a destroyer, it'll be dead before you can even cross the map and get to it. Or you'll die on the way over from a straight Tempest volley while out of range to receive healing from the Wisdom. Risking the extra damage potential isn't really worth the chance of missing out on the reward. If you really wanted to go with a seed chip destroyer, Ze'Ta is going to be your best bet, but a Mason Vigilant would be pretty funny. You could get over 3 million DPS on it, but you'd never get in range to deal with that damage. If you really wanted to run in a small group, make sure to steer clear of other destroyers. Just like an overly attached X, PGod gets very jealous, and the boson effect from the PGod's main weapon will completely nuke your capacitor if you so much as look at another player on a destroyer. But on the plus side, flying a destroyer means you get to witness Tempest launcher volleys being shot down with a pyro emitter. There's a seed chip for that now, so what is there now other than destroyers? Gunships are still a good choice, as are Lurfs. While they weren't prevalent in the old meta due to their inability to synergize as well with the group as destroyers, they more than outshine them now. Project 1011 is the highest possible DPS platform available. Being Empire grants it an innate 7% base damage bonus, and also being a Lurf increases base damage output by 50% from bonus weapon hardpoints. And it's rank 17, allowing it to have access to the best siege chips possible. Now for your weapon. You might think it would be funny to make a coil gun, Gatling, or Dagnith spammer, but we're here to optimize our damage. Looking at base damage, Heavy Blaster is pretty good. Beam Cannon isn't even bad either. Both of them are thermal weapons, meaning their damage will scale higher depending on their overheat. The Beam Cannon's higher critical damage multiplier is going to allow it to scale into higher damage easier than the Heavy Blaster, so we'll build for this weapon. Run with implants 2A, 6B, 11B, 12A, either 13B or 13C, and 15A. These will further increase the unchipped damage. A good chunk of the damage is going to come from the crit multiplier, so we'll need to be critting consistently. Focusing lens and IR scanners will increase the crit chance. Now for chips. We're looking for general damage, thermal damage, destroyer damage, fire rate, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage. The first thing to fill is the critical chance. You want to get as close to 100% critical hit chance as you can. If you have chips that have crit chance, using those will free up CPU slots for target tracking coprocessors to increase the crit multiplier. And if you have enough crit chance from your chips, the 25% bonus from curved reflectors is a solid option. Remember to not stack all of your chips into one stat, because while all bonuses to the same stat are additive, stacking into other stats becomes multiplicative, allowing you to reach into the millions for your crits. This can be redealt through Crystal Infiltrator and Tracer. Final note for amplifying your damage is that destroyers take bonus damage within 1 kilometer, and you can tell if you're going to be dealing the extra damage if the lead marker has spikes appear around it.
If your wing does not have chips, then under no circumstances should you ever use deployables if PGod has ashes, and never use any form of displacement equipment no matter what the circumstances are. This list includes but is not limited to Gravy Wave, Cathardu, Repelling Beam, Repelling Shield, Boarding Charger, Gravy Lasso, Tractor Beam, Recoil Compensated Cannon, Trap Mine, or Seed Chips with similar effects, etc. These modules and weapons will trigger the Prolapse God to wipe all current negative effects and become immune to receiving them for the duration of the displacement effect, including any resistance stripping, damage multipliers, and healing. Of course, there are always going to be pubs who will bring one or multiple of these modules and weapons at a time. It seems only half of them are too unobservant to realize what's happening, and that they increase the time to kill in a dedicated wing from 1 to 3 minutes to 6 to 8 just from having the equipment on the field. and it seems the other half know exactly what they're doing and even mock you in chat about it because they simply want to waste your time and subsequently their own. Basically, pubs are still incredibly fucking bad at this game, so only fly with people you trust. So after all that, you finally finish farming to unlock the Prolapse Burster. Surprise! All that farming was just to unlock the blueprint. Now you get to do it all again to actually build it. And now for a demonstration. This video was filmed between August and November of last year, and it was edited in December, so there are no seed chips involved in it, and the memes are pretty outdated. Sorry about that, but I already exported that part of the video, and I cleared my hard drives to fit the rest of the footage for this episode.
That's a lot of damage. How about a little more?
Yeet!
breaks the law on my watch.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah, this is big brain time.
Get what you fucking deserve!
Get out of here. Ah!
Out my path.
Oh, I got out of there. This isn't fair.
Alright, that about wraps it up. Thanks for making it to the end of this episode of SecCon Bravo. If you're listening to me speaking right now, know that it means a lot to me that you would actually watch it this far into the video, especially given that we've spent around 700 hours in recording everything, and I've spent around 200 hours in editing. I hope you enjoyed. We spent several $1,000s during the making of this video, which is quite a lot compared to our usual zero. Most of it was on computer hardware upgrades for some of our members, and of course the trip to Boston. Thanks again to What for sponsoring that one. If you're interested in supporting SecCon Bravo, we don't have a Patreon, but I have a PayPal if you want to send me money to buy replacement hard drives for the ones that failed in the middle of the project. With COVID-19 going around, the trips to California and Texas are obviously postponed, and everyone has been staying home. While home, I've been doing nothing but editing and recording for this video all day, every day for the past month. Maybe you support me by sending me funds, I can bribe my parents into thinking I'm not actually wasting room in their house by living here, and maybe I won't have to go live in a tent outside. I'm just kidding, they wouldn't do that to me. At least I hope not. Anyway, this video originally started in 2018 as an April Fool's joke for 2019, but we weren't able to get it out in time. I guess the joke is on me though, seeing as even with an extra year to work on it, it still didn't come out on the first. The big joke at the end was supposed to be that SecCon Bravo starts on Season 7 with no previous seasons and then gets immediately cancelled after Episode 1, but the joke just wouldn't make as much sense so late. Anyway, I don't have any plans for another video this long, so you can expect the usual shorter videos that come out like once a month. And as always, H and Trade Chat. Oh my god. I know what to do.
Wait,
An H. Like an H.
Tell me when ready.
3, 2, 1, H.
Motherfucker was amped. The nigga was motherfucking hyped up. The nigga just grabbed the nigga, snuffed the nigga, and it was on from there. The motherfucker, it wasn't nothing stopping them.
What the rest of these niggas do?
Man, the motherfuckers was ready for anything. The niggas was packing burners. The niggas was ready to fight. Whatever they had to do, Holmes. The niggas was on the real flip mode, Holmes. They was coming out like a motherfucker. The nigga was amped. He was like, come on, motherfucker. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Yeah. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Release the brainstorm to make your motherfucking brain warm. A strange form, something kinda lyrical. Biggie the bastard, so that's kinda spiritual. Well, in God we trust, guns are bust, got that disgusting suicide thumping. And do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that I bring?
He was like, are you Battlestar? Wait, does he really just Mario Pong controllers to play? That's heavy. I just witnessed murder land with collision damage.
I shot Trent in the head, took the bread and the lamb spread. Little Gotti got the shotty to your body.
That's literally what AOE on that stupid admit.
Oh, there we go.
Oh my god, you should see it on the big map. You should see it on the big map. He literally looks like a jump drive.
Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on.
Oh, there we go.
Come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on.
Stingray. I'm about to come on and con.
I'm gonna try to jump over to him.
Falcon M. It's not Stingray. Still just almost as dangerous.
Yeah, they can't do anything about that. That's not even a Falcon M.
They're not.
Yeah.
Did you just plant again?
Yeah.
So you wanna be hardcore with your head to the back, talking about the gats in your raps, but I can't feel that hardcore appeal that you're screaming. Maybe I'm dreaming. This ain't Christopher Williams, still some MC's got the feel one, perhaps I got the feel some. To let niggas know, doing big and heavy, I get up in that ass like the wedgie. Niggas saying Biggie off the street, it's a miracle.
No. Got away with it. Who was supposed to be on Shield but wasn't? There was one person that was called out specifically.
3, 2, 1, go.
All I want is bitches.
Right, he's looking at me.
Smash.
Stop all the snitches from staying in my business. What is this? Relentless approach to know if I'm broke or not. Just cause I smoke a lot don't mean I don't tote the block. 16 shots for my niggas in the pen until we motherfucking meet again. I'm doing rhymes, I need deep in the beats. In the Land Cruiser Jeep with the Mac.
Oh, I'll pick it up in that spawn. I'm in a Stingray. You shall soon be dead. Oh, nice. Did you get Pokemon cards?
Hey. Crude is around though.
There is something so wrong with this.
Almost. Drone.
You just got that. Fuck.
Drone, they got you.
You are getting stopped today.
Come on, motherfuckers, come on.
You guys are going on and on.
You know the story, the rap side, crack side, how I smoke, smack bitches on the backside. Bed-Stuy, the place where my head rests. 50 shots flipped if a nigga won't test. The rocket launcher, Biggie stomped ya. High as a motherfucking helicopter. That's why I pack a Nina. Fuck a misdemeanor. Beating motherfuckers like I beat Tina.
A nigga never been as broke as me. I like that. When I was young, I had 2 pair of leads. Besides that, the pinstripes in the gray. The one I wore on Mondays and Wednesdays. While niggas flirt, I'm sewing tigers on my shirt and alligators. You want to see the inside?
Oh, a satellite. What in the ever-living?
Why you punch me in my face? Stay in your place.
He's sorry, I had damage boost.
Rob him while his friends watch it. The hoes clock it. Here comes the set. This is right. They might be next.
Oh, there's a command right here.
Big man, they never try. We roll with them.
Can I run into him? Yeah, you.
Bomb on a Ze'Ta.
We're gonna yell that shit. What is that? Even when I was wrong, I got my point across. They depicted me the boss. Of course, my orange box color make the world go round. Plus I'm fucking bitches ain't my homegirls now. Start stacking, dabble in crack, gun packing. Nickname Medina, Medicinas, took my Ninas. From gym class to in glass, pass off for global. The only nigga with a mobile. Can't you see like total? Getting larger in wasted taste. Ain't no telling where this felon is heading. Just in case, keep a shell at the tip of your melon. Clear space. Your brain was a terrible thing to waste. After realizing to master enterprise, I ain't have to be in school by 10. I then began to encounter with my